I love Metroidvania games. Whether it's classics like the Metroid and Castlevania series that created the genre, or more contemporary titles like Ori or Hollow Knight, these are some of my favorite games to play. Today we're going to review Yupitergrad 2, the sequel to 2021's Yupitergrad from developer Gamedust. I will keep spoilers out of this review as much as possible. This was a 30-day Pico exclusive and now it's coming to Quest and PC VR. I didn't intend to review this game until I read the press release and saw the word Metroidvania in the description. By the way, shout out to Gamedust for the review key. Because I did get the game for free, I will be buying and giving away a copy in my Discord. The footage you'll see in this video is from the Quest version, but the game does support cross-buy on the Meta Store, so if you pick it up, you will get the Oculus PC version as well. In VR, we don't get a lot of these games. As I record this video, the only Metroidvanias I've played that come to mind are Moss Book 2 and the Forgotten Rift title Witchblood. If you can think of any others, drop them in the comments. If I haven't played them, I would love to. Now let's get to the game. Like the first game, you play as a cosmonaut navigating the deserted space station, swinging through it with the world's strongest toilet plungers for grappling hooks. In the first game, at the direction of a military commander, your job is to repower a mysterious device. In this game, you're trying to repair the spaceship you escaped from the first game station in. The developers noted that you do not need to have played the first game to understand the story of this one. They're right, you don't, but I kinda wish you did. See, you pick up shortly after the first game, but if you haven't played the first, you have no clue who you are, you have no clue why you're in the ship in the first place, and if you played the first game to completion and got to the cliffhanger ending, that's not addressed in this game at all. There's no exposition done for your artificial intelligence companion Aisha, and you're instead expected to just jump right in. That was a bit of a letdown. Also, the game does spend a bit too long, well over an hour, doing just what you did in the first game. The first power-up you get in this game is the same one from the last game, and I would have appreciated it if they mixed it up a bit. Graphically, the game is great to look at. I think cel-shaded games like Jurassic World Aftermath, Sweet Surrender, and this look fantastic in VR. Performance-wise, there's just one section of combat where the frame rate bottomed out, making that fight difficult to get through. It's the only fight I died multiple times in. Other than that, it runs just fine on the Quest, which is especially important here because you spend 99% of the game swinging around. Having said that, while the main rooms of the ship are all distinct and interesting, you spend most of the game navigating the hallways between them, carefully swinging across chasms and between lasers and trash compactors and buzzsaws and other obstacles. By the end, all these halls started to bleed together a bit. That made all the backtracking, and there is a lot of backtracking in this game, a bit on the tedious side. That's par for the course with games like this, but it hits different when you're standing up and pantomiming the motions as opposed to sitting on a couch. Thankfully, there is a full 3D map that can be rotated, something missing from the first game to help you keep track of where you are. The sound design in this game is fantastic. The music ramps up and down at just the right times to raise and lower the pace of the game. There are ambient sounds throughout the ship to both keep the tension high and drill home the feeling of isolation. You have two fully voice-acted AI companions in this game. Aisha returns from the first game with her quirky sense of humor intact, and in this game you also get Richard, who serves as an arrogant counterpoint to her and to direct you to the next objective to get your ship repaired. For gameplay mechanics, this is a true Metroidvania. Every time you visit a new area of the ship, you'll see some different colored doors, some yellow, some red, some purple, that you can't access until you find power-ups for your plungers throughout the ship. The game teases you to backtrack to these areas to get optional power-ups like Extended Shield. I didn't get everything in the game as I wanted to complete it for purposes of this review, but I will be replaying it later to 100% it, and that's rare for me. You get the combat add-on about a third of the way in, and that's the big addition to the series. The combat reminded me of Red Matter 2 in that it wasn't central to the game and just sorta there. The combat drones and sentry guns don't unlock until after you get your guns, so no worries there. They do feel a bit overpowered at first. You go down in 2 or 3 hits, which encourages you to track down more shield upgrades, but once you get the swinging down, they're easy enough to avoid. Let's talk about the swinging for a minute. Most people will look at this game and think it will cause motion sickness, and they could be right. I have very strong VR tolerance, so this wasn't an issue for me. I would not be throwing a new VR player into this. Like the first game and other swinging games like Resist and Swarm, the game is optimized well enough that the frame rate is smooth and there's no stuttering to make you queasy, aside from the section I mentioned earlier. The swinging does take a bit of getting used to, and I suspect that's why the beginning of the game is as slow as it is, so you can get used to it first. Your plungers can only be attached to light blue colored walls and platforms, and there's a reticule that turns white when you're aiming at something you can connect with. That's crucially important in great game design. You also get air jets to manipulate your body in midair, but you'll still find yourself crashing into walls ever so often. If you're looking for a deeply involved story, you'll be disappointed there. The plot basically serves as a reason for you to swing from one part of the ship to the next. There's not much in the way of lore here, at least not until the end of the game. The sense of humor is pretty good, so it does remain entertaining, but like I said at the beginning, there's no connection to the first game, which sets up a deeper plot at the end. I also do need to mention the game sort of holds your hand throughout. AI ship flat out tells you if you can't complete a section or proceed down a certain path to keep you on track, so while the ship is open to explore, the game remains fairly linear. Every time you reach the end of a hallway, the game saves and you get your health fully replenished. I only died maybe a dozen times playing all the way through this. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it, just that it's fairly easy once you master the swinging mechanics. Most of the later hallways get a bit trickier, but you usually have multiple paths to every section of the ship, so you can choose the path of least resistance if you want. Overall, the game took me about 6 hours to complete, and that's without getting every power up. The developer said the game is 4 to 6 hours long depending on how much you do. In the last year and a half, we've been blessed with a ton of sequels in VR. I'm glad to say this is a massive improvement over the first game. The first game cost $15 and I finished it in less than 2 hours. Yupitergrad 2 takes everything that worked in the first game and does it better here. My two gripes with the first game were the length and the lack of variety. Yupitergrad 2 is more than double the length of the first game and adds multiple power-ups from the gameplay mechanics. There are also some anti-gravity tunnels and swimming sections where, using the air jets you get early in the game, you get to soar around a bit. I appreciated that change of pace. If I had to put a score on the game, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's not a high-end AAA title, but it does what it does very well and it's leaps and bounds better than the first game. At $25 and given the physical nature of the game, my arms are pretty tired at the end of every play session, it's just the right length. I would definitely recommend this game for anyone looking for a new single-player game to get into. VR is overrun with multiplayer games, and as someone who favors single-player adventures, Yupitergrad 2 was a welcome experience. As I said before, I'll be buying a copy of this and giving it away in my Discord. I'm posting this video 3 days before the game releases. After it releases, I will add a referral link for 25% off in the pinned comment. Let me know down in the comments if you plan on picking this up. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more VR content, and as always, thank you for watching.